when we look at the number one killer in the world, or death-causing disease in the world, it's actually heart disease. And I'm sure every single one of you that are listening to this right now have a family member or a loved one or yourself have been impacted by heart disease. But this is a disease that actually a lot of people, they don't even know that they have heart disease building until the first heart attack. And for some people, that first heart attack, they die from it. So the first sign that any disease was even going on, they didn't even know that it was building for years, and that can pretty much be it. So when we look at our approach with health, is we don't want to base our health on how we feel. And we're going to be getting into some really practical things that you guys can start to understand. And really, when it comes to our health, if we don't have all the information, we can't make informed decisions. Yeah. So we want you, if this is the number one death-causing disease, we want you guys to understand it. A lot of times we just go to the doctor, we get our annual test done, and if they're off, we get handed a medication, and that's the end of it. And all our patients know that we want to empower you to always find the cause and to figure out why something had happened and to ask questions. So that's what I want this workshop to really stimulate for you guys is asking questions. And when you go to your doctor, you should be asking tons of questions. Yep. And knowing exactly what's going on.
Speaking of asking questions, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of very specific questions. So if you have something that you want to ask, go ahead and put it in the comments. And then we're going to be addressing some of those questions specifically throughout the week on Facebook, sharing videos so we can have access to that info year round. So if you have a question or comment, let us know, and then we'll address that specifically as we get through.
So the most common forms of cardiovascular disease that everyone's really familiar with are heart attacks and stroke. Mm-hmm. And these are something I know a lot of patients, when I talk to them, if they have a family history of it, they're really fearful of it. So we're going to be going through kind of some of the myths and things when it comes to heart disease. So the number one thing that we look at is we're told that heart disease is a normal part of aging. And we want to very clearly differentiate that common doesn't equal normal.
Yep.
The truth is that, if we look at the next slide here, heart disease is extremely common as people are aging, but this doesn't mean that it's a normal process to occur. But we've gotten to a point that culturally we're so sick, and we have, so many loved ones who don't have a quality of life, that we assume that that's just how things are supposed to go.
And you guys know that something that we talk about specifically, how this is becoming more and more common, not just in adults, but in children. We talk about the frequency and the percentages of how this is increasing in children as young as 3 and 4 years old, having plaque forming in 50% of the population and 60% of 15 and 19-year-olds. So this was something where it once was seen much, much later in life, that we're seeing more and more frequently, younger and younger. Actually, when we were preparing for this workshop, I was just searching some of the information on statin, the prescriptive guidelines for statins, and they just updated to include prescription guidelines for 3 and 4-year-olds. So it's something that we're seeing younger and younger, where they're actually beginning to test this for safety and efficacy in kids as young as 8 and 9 years old, and prescribe as early as 3 and 4.
And why we need to, really take our health seriously is, this is the first time in history that life expectancy is decreasing for this generation of kids. So, one of the studies found that fatty streaks, which is the first stage of atherosclerosis and our hardening of the arteries, it was found in the arteries of 100% of the kids by age 10. So the early stages of hardening of the arteries is being found in kids by the age of 10 years old. That it has got to change how we're approaching health, and it's not okay to say that it doesn't matter, we don't have to start with our kids because they don't have disease yet, because
they're young. Because they're young, they're not old.
It's we have a lot of times that we give them the okay to eat more sugary foods, or eat more junk food, and not exercise and do these things that are really destructive to their health because they don't have any symptoms yet. But that is something that we want you to end this workshop having in your head, that a symptom, by the time we have it, it's a warning sign that something has been building for a long time. And we're thankful for a symptom, but there can be years of damage building before any symptom shows up. And that is something that is extremely important for heart disease, because by the time the heart attack happens, it is decades of damage that's happened. So when we look at really right now in the United States, 1 out of 3 deaths is from heart disease in the United States. There's one death every 38 seconds. I mean, this is crazy. It's estimated that $1.1 trillion is going to be spent on heart disease by the year 2035. And so this is something that is impacting people more and more. So we want to give you guys the tools to really take charge of this. Some of the key risk factors with heart disease, when we look at high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, these are all risk factors, and they found on average it's about 47% of Americans have at least one of these risk factors. And a lot of times people start to have the high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, the metabolic syndrome. This is becoming more and more common that this is happening.
So, guys, if you remember when we talked about at the movement workshop how metabolic dysfunction leads to these metabolic disease processes starting, by not incorporating simple things that we talk about every single day in the office, by not moving your body to sweat, by not moving your spine through the different ranges of motion, you're setting yourself up for this metabolic issue and metabolic process that ultimately leads to something that is much, much larger than just not looking good or weighing a certain amount.
And, for those people who have a family history of heart disease, if they have a family history of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, we are told so much that it's genetic,
Yeah.
like, oh, that sucks, you have bad genes. There is more and more information coming out in the field of epigenetics. This was relatively new in the 90s, the stuff coming out, but there is so much research now coming out about how we can impact the genetic expression. So whether we have a gene that promotes heart disease that we were born with, we have the ability to leave it on, or we can turn it off by the lifestyle choices that we're making. So I want that to, if that's something that's on your heart and you've been told, well, there's nothing you can do, you're going to end up with these diseases because it's in your genes. I want to encourage you guys that you have way more control than what we're told, and it doesn't have to be a life sentence for you.
I remember the within the first month that we opened, which was 5 years ago on Sunday, we opened 5 years we've been open with the office. And within our first month, we had somebody come into the office that was prescribed high blood pressure medication and statins because he had a family history of it. He had no warning signs, no indicators of high blood pressure. His cholesterol was within the normal ranges, but the doctor said, well, you have a history, so we're going to go ahead and prescribe this to get in front of it.
And he was only 30 years old. So now we're preventatively putting people on these medications because they have a family history. So we're not even giving people a chance. And we're going to talk about some of the side effects associated with those medications. But some of the other factors that can increase your risk of heart disease are diabetes, being overweight, poor diet, and we're going to go through the specific things nutritionally that are going to trigger your risk factors for heart disease, physical inactivity, and excess alcohol use. So those are some other of the key risk factors when it comes to heart disease. So I don't want to get too much into the science of this. I do want to, but
She really, really wants to be all sciencey. And we would have to have like the nerd alert, like warning sign flash up on the screen, but we're not going to get too much into the science things. But I do want to pose a question before we get Aaron ramped up. So we all hear the term good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Go ahead and put in the comments what you think the good cholesterol is, what you think, more importantly, what you think the bad cholesterol is. Go ahead and comment that. The first person that comments, I'll think of something cool that we can do in the office. But comment what you think the bad cholesterol is, and we're gonna get Aaron all ramped up and fired up to talk about it.
So I'm gonna cut down some of the sciencey stuff, but I want you to understand. We go to a doctor and they test our cholesterol, and a lot of times the doctors are just looking at the total cholesterol number, when in reality that doesn't tell us anything. It's the ratios of the different types of cholesterol that actually tell us if a person is in an appropriate range or not. The total does not matter, and it is so crazy. There's been a lot of different meta-analysis done and reviews and studies. They keep dropping the total cholesterol guidelines, and the last time that they dropped it down to, they want it now under 200, there was really no justification. There was nothing showing if we dropped it even below that threshold any decreased risk of heart attacks. So it's just these guidelines keep dropping, and more people are getting put on statins, and they don't even really understand why. They're just told, I have to get my total cholesterol numbers down. So we label things as good and bad cholesterol. There's not good or bad. They have a purpose. Everything that the body produces and everything that the body does, it has a purpose. And so we don't want to just eliminate one specific type of cholesterol, but we need to make sure that we're getting the body into balance. So the purpose of the HDL cholesterol, which this is something that we all are told is the good cholesterol, and this is the numbers that we want to be up, and it's amazing how many people have really low levels of HDL. But what go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when they're prescribed a statin because the total's high, what usually we see drop first or before anything is actually the HDL going down before the LDL moves. So
the purpose of the HDL is actually to get the cholesterol that's circulating in the bloodstream that doesn't need to be there anymore. It'll actually pull that back into the liver. So about 80% of the cholesterol is produced in the liver, and so that's why we're going to go through. Even though nutrition is important, it's not about eliminating dietary cholesterol, because 80% of it is produced by the body. It's not coming in from your actual nutrition. But LDL has a purpose as well, and LDL is the one that we're told is the bad cholesterol, and we're told this is the one that we need to have down. But what LDL does is it actually transports the cholesterol into the bloodstream to go to the cell. So the cell membranes are made up of cholesterol. It needs to be there. And also cholesterol is a precursor for steroid hormones within the body. So you need the cholesterol in order to produce hormones. So LDL is transporting it to where the body needs to be able to produce it. Now, when the ratios are off and LDL becomes higher and those ratios are starting to be thrown off, that does become an issue, but we have to figure out why that's happening. The body is doing it for a purpose. So just trying to slam down the overall total cholesterol, I want you guys to think about that. It doesn't fix what was causing the body to raise those numbers to begin with. So HDL and LDL have a purpose of transporting the cholesterol back and forth. And so we need to just understand the body and understand exactly what's going on, why it would be throwing these ratios off. There's also two different types of carriers that we're not going to go into, but
she wants to so bad.
But and it's crazy because we only test the HDL and LDL, but there are other carriers that a complete panel is really needed to understand exactly what's going on in the body. But we just kind of do a brief overview of everything. But when we look at the truth about cholesterol, it's not the total cholesterol that causes damage or increased risk of heart disease. It's the oxidation of cholesterol. And so oxidation, to understand that process, that's what like rust is. When something becomes rusty, it's the oxidation. It's a process that happens within the body. And really the key things that I want you guys to focus on with this to reduce the oxidation of cholesterol that increases the risk of heart disease, it is we need to have more antioxidants, and we need to have an anti-inflammatory we need to bring down inflammation in the body. So we're going to be talking about ways that we have anti-inflammatory nutrition, that we're not putting things in that are promoting that inflammatory process. So those are two things that I really want you to keep in your head. We need antioxidants and anti-inflammatory are the key things there. So we look at one of the other truths about cholesterol is more people actually have heart attacks with normal cholesterol levels than elevated. So listen to that statement again. More people have heart attacks with normal cholesterol levels than elevated. And so there's a lot of controversy that some of the studies have shown that there's actually a higher death rate with low cholesterol than actually high cholesterol. So there's been this debate going on for such a long time of whether we lower cholesterol, does it actually prevent or give people reduced incidence of death from heart disease if we lower that? But statin drugs, which are the primary cholesterol lowering drug that's given, a lot of studies have shown that it doesn't actually reduce the mortality from a heart attack and stroke. So this is really, really important to understand.
The whole reason they're prescribing this to you, the whole reason that people take this medication is to increase longevity, increase quality of life, continue on with the lifestyle that maybe even led them there in a lot of cases, but we take this medication thinking that it's going to keep us around longer, and they've never been able to prove that it does. So, like, it's a $1 million, if not $1 billion industry. And I was reading an article a few weeks ago that the ultimate goal of statin medications is to make it an over-the-counter item that you can just buy at the grocery store without a prescription, just something you can pick up like you would pick up toothpaste or deodorant. You pick up your statins. That's the end goal of where a lot of these companies that manufacture this medication would love to see it go, and it's doing nothing to decrease our risk of dying from heart disease or heart attack.
So what's really powerful is, when we have patients that we start asking the questions as to, why are your ratios of cholesterol off? Why do we have this oxidation of cholesterol happening? Why are we, why do we have all this inflammation? And we start to correct what's causing it. I love that they can go back to their doctors and get their routine blood work, and they talk with their doctor about, hey, I'm making these changes. Can we start tapering off medication? And they work with their doctor about being able to safely do that. And we've had recently a few patients who their doctors said, okay, we'll give you 90 days of coming off the medication, and then we're going to retest. And they retested, and their levels were beautiful without the medication. Mm-hmm. So it's something that we have to really figure out what's causing it and work with the body. And the answer is not to just get a medication, because regardless if you're taking a medication to lower cholesterol levels, you're not any healthier, because we never fixed what was causing it to happen in the first place. So some of the causes of high cholesterol, we're told that it's primarily just fats in our nutrition. But so poor diet is something that is really important. The foods that are most likely to raise your LDL cholesterol and cause that oxidation are things like saturated, different types of denatured saturated fats and trans fatty acids. So there was actually the Cleveland Clinic put out a report, and they were talking about that. If you look at the food labels, and Zach's going to get into this a little bit more, but hydrogenated oils, if it says hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, those are the specific things that are going to be increasing issues when it comes to cholesterol. It's also, they said in this report from the Cleveland Clinic that the body actually, it's not about the dietary cholesterol coming in, and they were actually reversing their recommendations of telling people to stop eating the egg yolks and stop eating, dietary cholesterol. And they told them that it's about 80 to 85% of the cholesterol circulating is made by the liver and made by the actual body. So it's more important, instead of focusing on, the good fats that we want to be increasing, that we stay away from the damaged fats that actually cause that oxidation.
And oddly enough, I was just shared with something this afternoon. Somebody shared an article with me that a Harvard professor did a study and said coconut oil is like pure poison. It's so bad for you. And I found it, I did a little digging into, who this person was, what she said, and it was actually off of a study that was funded by canola oil company. She issued the statement. So you talk about a conflict of interest, somebody that has a study funded by completely different type of oil goes and issues a statement and says that coconut oil is like drinking pure poison, and it actually is more damaging than even drinking or consuming lard. So I mean, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There was a few months ago, or maybe even a year ago, the study from the American Heart Association where they said that coconut oil is bad for you. It increases your risk of heart disease. In that study, they looked at a refined coconut oil. So when we talk about the benefits of consuming healthy fats and bringing down inflammation from consuming these types of foods, we're talking about the item in its most pure form, not something that's ultra processed, not something that's been super refined, where we're pulling out these good elements. We're talking about something that is less messed with by man and coming from something that is how God created it. And when we just do and consume more foods made by God and less foods made by man, we're going to be at an infinitely better starting point than if we went the other way, like the standard American diet encourages us to do.
So getting back to the genetic component of it, so we're told a lot of times that there's you have a genetic component that your genes cause you to have high cholesterol, and there's nothing you can do with it. This is a pretty cool study that they looked at. And they were looking at specific genes. They actually have identified now 46 genes that are directly linked to heart disease. And when they looked at these factors, they found that even though we can't change our genes, what we're given, epigenetic studies have shown that an anti-inflammatory diet, so changing your nutrition.
Well, and I gotta clarify, we do mean change how they are expressed. We can't literally swap the genes out, is what.
So they found if with an anti-inflammatory diet, it can alter the expression of genes that will promote hardening of the arteries. So you guys see that they found that through these studies that you can alter the expression. Yes, we can't change the genes that we've been given, but we can alter whether it's expressed, whether it's turned on or off. So that is pretty powerful that we can have that happen. So recent cholesterol lowering statin trials failed to demonstrate a similar effect as the anti-inflammatory nutrition actually did. So that's pretty powerful and gives you a lot more empowerment of tools that you can do instead of saying there's nothing that I can do as a result of the genetics that I've been given. So some other causes of high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, stress, we're going to talk about that, issues with your thyroid or endocrine system, kidney disease, liver disease, medications can actually increase cholesterol, and other types of problems with like polycystic ovarian syndrome and other endocrine system disorders as well. So you can see that sometimes when somebody has high cholesterol, there could be another underlying issue that's going on that's driving the cholesterol up in the first place. So if we really look at heart disease, the things that we focus on are cholesterol, and then the other component that we focus on is high blood pressure. And this is something that is called the silent killer because this can be going on for a really long time, and a lot of people ignore symptoms of it, or they don't know that anything is really going on with it. So now I want you to understand again that if somebody has high blood pressure, there's a reason that the blood pressure is high. Your body, I promise you, is not stupid. It doesn't raise your blood pressure for no reason. Something is going on that is causing the blood pressure to be high. So that's what we got to get down to, figuring out exactly what's causing it. But yes, it is dangerous to have super high blood pressure for long periods of time. So, yes, that's when somebody needs to go on a medication to lower it, but in the end, we still got to figure out what caused it and then get off the medication. The answer isn't to be on the medication for the rest of your life because, again, whatever was causing the high blood pressure is still there.
Yep.
That process is still happening. So some of the symptoms of high blood pressure, you can get actually bloodshot eyes. You can you feel flushed when you're going from different position changes. Dizziness, fatigue, confusion, chest pain, irregular heartbeat, vision problems. You can actually start to have blood in your urine. So there's different warning signs that your blood pressure is elevated. It's supposed to fluctuate throughout the day, but having consistently elevated levels can indicate that something is going on in the body that we have to figure out exactly what's causing that to happen. So when we look at the different components of high blood pressure, there's different stages of it. But regardless of any of these stages, the answer traditionally with our medical system right now is to throw somebody on a medication to reduce high blood pressure. So when we look at it, there's two different components of the blood pressure. The top number, so you guys always hear that's the top number,
over 80,
the top number and the bottom number. Again, these numbers have been driven down what is considered normal range. And what's considered normal is just averages. Every person's body, what their normal is going to be different compared to somebody else. But the top number, there's a lot of studies that have been done over the years that is something that once you're over 40, they found that number should go up a little bit with age. Because over time, your arteries start to lose elasticity. And so the blood pressure naturally will start to raise itself to compensate for that happening. Like God knew what he was doing when he made us. So I love when we understand what the body is doing. So that top number should go up a little bit. But we're told everybody has to stay within this range. And that's where it's driving these problems to happen. Because if the body needs increased oxygen, it's going to raise blood pressure. And if we stop that from happening, we start to create these issues with lack of oxygen within the body. So really when we get down to, high blood pressure, there's also the components of things that we're taking from the outside can affect high blood pressure. So one of the big things that we see with a lot of people is they're on pain medication, or they're taking ibuprofen or NSAIDs, the anti-inflammatory medications that they're on. Those actually cause damage to the kidneys and will elevate blood pressure. So now you have somebody who, is on these pain medications, and then they have elevated blood pressure, and now they get put on another medication to lower their blood pressure. And you see where a medication doesn't fix anything, it's going to cause more problems. We have to get down to fixing what's causing it to happen in the first place. So I thought this was pretty crazy when we look at the medications, the solutions that were given to high cholesterol and high blood pressure. Statin medications have been shown to have a 440% increased risk of dementia. So think about how crazy it is.
And that's, when we rank these causes of death, in our country or in the world, neurodegenerative issues are amongst the top 5 consistently. I think it was the most recent one was number 4. And you look at something, we're taking something to prevent one thing, and then it's causing another 440% increased risk, a proven increased risk in dementia, without the increased benefit of decreased mortality.
Well, and so I want you guys to really think of this medication cycle as, yes, there's a time and place for medications, but it's not the answer long term, because you look at someone gets put on, so let's look at heartburn. Somebody gets put on Prilosec, which is a super common medication for heartburn. That is not meant to be taken long term, but it is insane how many people that have come in and they've been on this for
Pop it like Tic Tacs.
Years. They've been on this medication. But Prilosec, one of the side effects with it is it decreases nutrient absorption. And so one of the nutrients, magnesium, is something that's depleted when somebody is taking Prilosec. Magnesium is needed for heart function. And Prilosec will, actually one of the side effects is high blood pressure. So somebody is taking, Prilosec for heartburn, and then they get high blood pressure, and then they get put on a blood pressure medication. Well, what's crazy is blood pressure medication, one of the side effects of it can be heartburn. So you look at everything. A lot of times I have patients on, 10, 15 medications, and they're taking medications for the side effects of other medications. Another thing that we, want to discuss briefly is the aspirin a day recommendation that's been given for such a long time. In 2014, the FDA actually came out and said that if you have not actually had a heart attack, you should not be taking an aspirin a day for prevention.
Have y'all noticed that those commercials haven't been out anymore? Like, we talk about this, and your doctors may still be recommending this or saying that this is beneficial, but have you noticed, that's not one of the commercials that you would see, in between a TV show? We don't see that recommendation anymore, because since 2014, the FDA actually made Bayer stop saying that and using that as one of their marketing campaigns. So, again, it comes down to these things that in theory might work, but then in reality, it doesn't happen the way that we plan for it.
So, that's something. I still have patients come in who left, their doctor, and they said, well, they just put me on an aspirin a day. Please make sure that you, if your doctor has recommended that to you, talk with them about it, because that, like I said, in 2014, they said that it's actually the bleeding risk, that there's more harm than actual good with taking that. So, these are things that it's, in the end, our body is made to heal. And in the end, any disease that's going on, there's a cause to it. And so, we look at when we take care of patients and have people come in the office, we see such amazing changes, and people, their doctors taking them off medication instead of putting them on more and more medication, because we're working with the body and understanding it and not trying to change things from the outside. So when we look at our approach is we look at the 5 essentials. So if there is any type of disease process happening in the body, we have to look at, is there too much of something or a deficiency in it, a toxicity or deficiency in every single area. So we look at, number 1, core chiropractic with our patients, because the nervous system is what's regulating everything in the body. And this is something that is completely missed. We have people who they are making amazing changes with their nutrition. They're exercising. I mean, you look at the lifestyle wise, they're doing incredible. Have you guys ever had that person that you knew that, eats right, exercises? I mean, they're in amazing shape, and you're like, they have got to be so healthy, and then they have a heart attack? or they get diagnosed with, a disease. And it's like that, like, rocks people's world and gets people to the point
But they
that
were so healthy.
yeah, they say, well, I might as well not even do anything if this is going to happen. But we have those people come in who they're frustrated because they're doing everything on the lifestyle side. But when we start to do an evaluation with them, we find that there is actually interference to their nerve communication. And, we look at chiropractic is not just the pain side of it. That's what chiropractic has been, really the name for it has been is, oh, you go to a chiropractor to help your neck and back feel better and headaches go away. We do have great results with people feeling better coming into the office, but in the end, chiropractic is about restoring function to the body. It's about removing interference. If there's damage within the spine, it's affecting nerve signals getting to the body. So we look at something, the nerve going to your heart. It comes, the nerve signals have to come from the brain through the spinal cord out a nerve route to go to the heart. And if we cut that nerve going to the heart, actually, the heart doesn't stop immediately. It's going to continue beating. There's cells in there that's going to continue to keep it going for a little while.
More science.
But what's crazy is if you shut down the control of the brain actually regulating the heartbeat, it'll start to become irregular. So we start to have this irregular rhythm, arrhythmia that starts to happen because the brain is no longer in control of the heart beating the way that it's supposed to. So if you guys got up right now and ran across the room, your heart rate is going to go up because your muscles needed more oxygen, and it told the brain it needed more oxygen, and the brain responded. It is beautiful how the body communicates and gives the body exactly what it needs, but that requires the brain and body communicating at 100%. So that is the key part that we start with our patients when we see them in the office is we make sure that the nervous system is functioning at 100%.
Another element that is a huge, it's really easy to explain how we get too much or too little of something is when we look at nutrition. It's we a lot of times get way too much sugar or processed foods that are driving up inflammation, and then we don't get enough of the nutrients, the components of nutrition that help to bring inflammation down, to help to balance our cell walls so we can absorb nutrients, so we can eliminate waste, so we're decreasing oxidative stress. Nutrition is a huge component of what we start working on with our patients right away, and it's another reason why we do our Essential Foundation class every single month, because we talk about the importance of getting quality nutrition, minimizing processed foods, and getting foods that are in their whole food form. We talk about the importance of increasing oxygen and exercise, or in doing that by exercising, and how it's not just about getting to a certain weight or building muscle so you can look a certain way or getting ready for beach season or whatever motivation would typically drive somebody January 1st to start exercising. And then we talk about how we can start minimizing our exposure to toxins. So all of these things that we look at have a direct, we absolutely as a culture get too much of something and then not enough of another. Mindset is probably one of the most overlooked components of our health. We do a lot culturally to drive stress up, to increase cortisol, to not pour into ourselves or give ourselves time to unwind, to de-stress. So it's constantly go, 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 and our body's always in sympathetic overdrive. And then when it comes time to relax, we wonder why we can't fall asleep or why we can't stay asleep. So these 5 essentials are, it's not anything that is trademarked by our office. It's just a simple common sense way of living. And when you approach this, when you get quality nerve supply, when you eat quality food, you're minimizing or managing stress, you're exercising and getting oxygen into your system, and you're not overloading your body with toxins, of course you're going to live better and longer and more and have a more vital life.
So this is where when we approach these 5 essentials with our patients, we give them a healthcare delivery system where it's not focusing on disease management. It's actually focusing on reaching your optimal potential. Like, how amazing is that to think about, hey, me and my family, instead of us, just getting by or, trying to run away from disease or, wait for something to happen, we're actually living to our God-given potential, and we're thriving, and we're living this amazing life because we're focusing on health and vitality and taking care of our bodies so we can do the things that God has called us to do. And really that's our heart and our passion and what we get to see every single day when we're taking care of our patients. So if you guys are struggling with high blood pressure or high cholesterol, you've got to look at where in these essentials do we need to work on? What have you neglected when it comes to your health? Because these aren't things we can pick and choose what we want to do.
But there is a little asterisk to that, because if you go and look up quality nutrition on whatever search engine you like to use, you're going to get millions of results in less than a second, and some may be really good, but most are probably going to be really bad. Same thing when it comes to oxygen and exercise or minimizing toxins. You can find people saying how detox systems are a complete waste of time and money, and your body should do it on its own, but they're not accounting for the overload and overexposure that our bodies get every single day, a lot of times every single second of our lives, with what we're exposing ourselves to. So we maybe made it sound very oversimplified and just searching one of those things and picking the best sounding one. But if you need help with these areas, let us know. You can message us, you can contact the office. But this is absolutely something
for our patients. If you haven't really dove into one of these, like, if the one that you've been avoiding, we have patients who they're, doing amazing. We get started with correcting nervous system. They start implementing nutrition, and then they are avoiding everything they can to exercise.
I know. I feel like so many people lately have been like so willing to go through like a hardcore detox or like liver flush, but I want them to exercise with me. Like, nah.
So, really, you have to call yourself out on, the thing that, we're avoiding, maybe the thing that you really need to do when it comes to your health, that we can't neglect any of these areas. So, it's very simple, like Zach said, but, in the end, we have certainty knowing that if we fall and we have a cut on our leg, it heals. We talk about this simple analogy all the time, that every single person, I've never had somebody look at me and say, if I have a cut on my leg, it's never going to heal. It's going to be there for the rest of my life. Our body was created to heal. You have a
This
child.
This is my life now.
Yeah, a child falls, and you patch them up and you put a Band-Aid on and say, okay, it's going to heal. And so we understand that external side of it, but internally we say once we have heart disease, once we have, all of these issues going on, that there's nothing that we can do about it. The body is made to heal. So if we correct what's causing the interference, if we remove the interference and get to the cause, that's the cure. And so we remove interference, we find the cause, and our body can thrive, and we don't have to sit there and accept disease limiting us for the rest of our lives. So I hope this is encouraging for any person who's just been stuck in a place with their mindset when it comes to health and healing, that there is so much more that you have control over. So with the nutrition, we're going to give you guys some key things that are going to be important to start with.
So the most important area, I've alluded to it several times, is first focusing on minimizing and eliminating forms of processed refined grains and sugar. If we started there from an inflammation standpoint, we would see such huge changes that that would continue us on for a long period of time, just by making that simple change and that simple switch first. And then we start incorporating the good healthy fats, replacing the processed oxidized fats with sources that are coming from a whole food form. So replacing those types of oils that we use with cooking that are created in a factory using high heat and machines to get these oils out, and then we replace that with something that's minimally processed. So canola oil is replaced with an extra virgin unrefined coconut oil, and it's something that doesn't have to be incredibly expensive. I think you can get it at like Sam's or Costco for under $15 for a giant container of it. You can certainly get it online anywhere, but the key thing to look for is extra virgin unrefined. That's what you want to look for when it comes to coconut oil.
Well, and this is a really important thing, because we have a lot of patients that have had issues with their cholesterol, and their doctors are still on them, like, you have to keep taking this statin.
You gotta go low fat.
You gotta cut out fats, and so they start to change their nutrition to doing more whole foods and getting rid of some of the processed stuff, but they're cooking with vegetable oil, and they're not changing their oils. That is really, really, really important that you change your oils, because those oils, like that the professor at Cleveland Clinic said, those are actually driving the inflammatory process and causing the oxidation of cholesterol, and that is going to increase your risk of heart attack. So we have got to get those inflammatory oils out of there. So we're, like we said, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated look at the label.
Yep.
If it says that, no.
Some of the key things that you're going to want to look to replace when it comes to the types of fat you're consuming are the vegetable oil, that we don't know what vegetables are making this type of oil, peanut oil, corn oil, soybean oil. Those are all going to be either highly processed or very inflammatory, or they will increase that oxidative stress or oxidative load. And we would replace them with, an extra virgin olive oil or olive oil. If you do get those types of oils, though, you want to make sure that it's in a glass bottle that's a dark color. We're finding now, there was a couple articles that were going around that the companies that are manufacturing these types of olive oils are making blends, and they're not disclosing that they're blending the oil. So if you're buying it at the grocery store, or if you're buying it somewhere, make sure that it's in a dark colored glass bottle. And you want to use very low heat with those types of oils. Otherwise, it will begin to smoke and oxidize that fat, which is going to then take on or increase the oxidative load and make it more inflammatory. We would replace the medium cooking heats with the coconut oil, the extra virgin unrefined coconut oil. And then if you cook stuff at high heat, for a long time our suggestion was grapeseed oil, but they're finding that to be even a little bit more inflammatory than something like an avocado oil. So there's tons of oils out there that are minimally processed. They don't use a ton of heat. They still have a high smoke point, so you can cook with them with baking, or you can use them on top of the salad to make a dressing. But you're going to be getting the good anti-inflammatory properties from them. The other thing that when it comes to snacks is the types of nuts and seeds that you're eating. A lot of times an easy switch that people make to replace potato chips would be like a roasted nut or seed. But again, we're taking something that has a good beneficial fat, we're increasing the heat, we're oxidizing it, we're making it more inflammatory. So if we're going to go with a snack with nuts and seeds, we want to make sure that we're getting it in a raw form. We're not getting the roasted option.
Yeah, that's a big thing that people switch to getting more of the healthy fats, but they're damaged fats.
I left out the biggest thing. So the other biggest, easiest switch, if you have margarine in your refrigerator, you can go ahead and throw that right in the garbage and then start buying real butter. Because we've said for off and on, it seems, for the past few decades, butter's bad, oh, no, butter's good, oh, wait, no, butter's bad. Now they're saying, yeah, it's good, and it's good. So if you have margarine, the easiest switch most people can make when it comes to nutrition is to throw the fake butter away, because if you just left it outside, you would notice that insects and bugs and animals won't go to eat it because they don't even recognize it as food. Yet somehow we've been tricked by manufacturers to think that it is. So we can throw that right in the garbage and get an actual food and start using butter, or just using coconut oil if you make something. It's an easy switch.
So we're increasing healthy fats that our body needs, and we're getting rid of the damaged ones that are causing inflammation. And then the other thing is we've got to reduce sugar and processed grains. Sugar is extremely inflammatory in the body.
So when we're talking about carbohydrates, we're not saying all carbs are bad, because carbohydrates are absolutely beneficial. We're talking about processed and refined carbohydrates, things that are going to be coming from white breads, white sugar, white potatoes, corn, things that have a very, very high amount of sugar associated with them and very, very low amounts of fiber. So the things that we want to consume from a carbohydrate standpoint are going to be very nutrient dense, they're going to be high in fiber, and they're not going to affect our blood sugar by causing huge spikes and then really rapid drop-offs. So carbs are a good thing to consume. We just got to make sure that we're consuming or eating the right types.
So, when you look at the component that is going to drive your risk factors for the hardening of the arteries or the damage to the arteries happening with that inflammatory process is blood sugar. It's not good being in the arteries, and it causes the way that the body pulls sugar out of the bloodstream is by increasing insulin and cortisol, and those are going to increase the inflammatory process within the body. So we've got to work on cutting out sugar. And this is, when we have someone come in who has high cholesterol, who has a high blood pressure, we get really strict with cutting out. People look at even healthy sugars, and say, oh, well, if it's a natural source of sugar, it's still sugar, and it's still something that if we're trying to bring inflammation down and give your body a chance to heal, we need to cut all of them out. It's not as strict. We can have some of those things in moderation. But initially, to get your body out of crisis point, we do have to be more strict with it.
You guys may have noticed, so some of the questions that we then get asked are, well, how do I make these replacements? How do I switch out the types of foods? My kids like to eat this thing. What do I do? So you probably have noticed that we share a lot of recipes on our Facebook page. Our patients, when we do a nutrition consult or when we sit down and go through some next steps that they can make, a lot of times we send them with a ton of different recipes that they can use to get the kids on board or to get husband or wife on board that maybe doesn't like to eat well. So there's a lot of options out there, and if you need something, message us, let us know. We can likely point you in the right direction when it comes to getting good healthy foods.
So this is the one that
my favorite.
We have people avoiding a lot of.
So when it comes to exercise and oxygen, we just did a few weeks ago an entire workshop speaking on the importance of exercising. And when it comes down to it, culturally, we're not moving enough. And a lot of times you say, well, I got my 10,000 steps, so I'm good. Well, there was just an article released, and it was published by The Guardian. They looked at, that's a great first step, but that's not enough to satisfy the genetic requirement that humans have for movement. So when we look at exercising, doing something that gets your heart rate up, that makes you sweat, that creates a stress response that your body can overcome or adapt to, is essential. So we do need to start pushing ourselves more, especially when it comes to exercise. So when you look at the importance of getting oxygen into your system, by doing that we're increasing the ability for our bodies to repair. Oxygen is an essential component for repairing tissue in our bodies. So exercise is the vessel to do that and get that in there.
And it's something that we teach you guys, that it's not about taking this huge time out of your day, that you can do an extremely efficient, effective workout with your body in, we do a 12-minute workouts, 15-minute workouts. So, this is something that you can do with your family, you can do with kids. We actually have our Wednesday lunchtime workout that we do in the office, has become a lot of families and kids doing that. So, it's a fun thing to incorporate together, because we talked about earlier at the beginning of how many children are now having hardening of the arteries starting in this plaque buildup, that we've got to get our kids moving. They're sedentary, they're on screen time so much more. School is taking out more of the physical activity components of everything, that we've got to get them to move.
And we make excuses and we say, well, they're a kid, they don't need to exercise because they're playing. Well, no, they're not. We're finding more and more that kids aren't playing outside. The only type of exercise or movement they get is with their thumbs moving around a screen or a video game system. So when it comes to exercise, it doesn't even have to be like these fun kid type exercises. For the most part, kids really love to exercise just like mom and dad. So you don't have to look at it as, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with my kid. Do it with them. If that's the first step or the first start of getting your family to start making a movement towards health, exercise as a family. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy intense. Sometimes you need to get in shape, and that's totally okay. And if that means reducing your intensity for your kids to get on board with it, then that's awesome, because you get to do something as a family, and you're also really increasing your accountability, because once your kids start loving exercise, they're going to call you out if you try to stop.
Yeah, and when you teach them about how important it is, they're going to bring that right back to you. So
yeah, they get you.
We want that congruency as a family together. So we need to exercise. It's an essential, and that's also going to bring us into the de-stressing component. We need to make sure that we are moving our body. That's an essential component of it. But where stress really comes into the increased risk of heart disease is because stress, it's going to actually increase certain things in the body. A stress response that we think about if in nature. So if we look at the stress response as God intended it to be, if you were getting chased by a lion, we have to think about all the things that would be happening. Your body right then goes into fight or flight. We know that sympathetic nervous system kicks in. Your body just goes into survival mode. So when there's a stressor, like your life is getting threatened, a lion's chasing you, your body is going to do everything it can, divert energy for survival. So one of the things that happens is your muscles are going to need a ton of oxygen to get your butt out of there to be able to run away. So your blood pressure is going to increase, your cholesterol is going to increase. There's certain things that happen in the body in order to initiate the appropriate stress response. LDL cholesterol actually goes up during a stress response because it's a precursor for some of the stress hormones that are needed for survival. So LDL, again, it has a purpose, but you think about now, let's take the lion out of it. Let's think about our everyday lives. Emails that are unanswered, deadlines that we have to meet, kids being taken from one activity to the next, and you're running around and you have all these things going on. Those are perceived stressors that the body doesn't know the difference between life-threatening versus those types of things. So the body initiates a stress response as if you were getting chased by a lion. Now, the stress response is meant to be short-term to get you to safety, but think about now how many of us live in that stressed out world day after day after day after day. And so our body gets stuck in the sympathetic dominance, which is why we have all these disease processes. They're happening because we're triggering these things to happen. And the body is doing the right thing, but it's because we're living in this stressed out state.
So an action step for you when it comes to getting stress, helping yourself de-stress and rest is, as a transition from one thing to the next, focusing on taking a few deep breaths and then letting it go. So there was a study done by a research facility in Japan, and they wanted to quantify the number of breaths required to change somebody's physical state. And they took a group of participants and they ran them through various stressors, and then they had them do a single deep breath and then two, and they found that it took on average the participants to get six deep breaths is what was required. So 6 big deep breaths in through the nose, keeping your jaw relaxed, your tongue behind your 2 front teeth, exhaling through the mouth. So a 4-second inhale, and then a 2-second hold, and a 4 to 8 second exhale 6 times as a transition. They found that it lowered blood pressure, that it helped to de-stress, it decreased cortisol levels. So when we talk about transitioning, if you're in a high stress situation and you're going from one thing to the next constantly all day long, even just doing that, there's some other huge things that we try to practice as a family by not looking at our phones right when we wake up, or not looking at our phone an hour or two before bed. We don't set our alerts for our computers to let us know when we have email, so we set time aside to check our email purposefully every single day. So we try to minimize those stressors. If all that seems like too much, just breathe. 6 deep breaths is what we're talking about when you're transitioning from one thing to the next.
It's amazing how much we just forget to breathe throughout the day. And we're taking these short breaths.
It's a constant reminder when we're exercising as well. So with Max T3, another added benefit of coming to work out with the group is you generally push harder. You can get modifications that you wouldn't be able to get without guidance. But then I also remind you to breathe, because a lot of times when it comes to exercise, when we're doing something super, super hard, a lot of people are holding their breath. And just letting that go, letting that stress out is huge.
So, we look at, we have to be able to take control of the things that we can control. There's going to be things that happen in life that's beyond our control, but control what you can, what you have the ability to. And a lot of these things and these steps that you can start to make healthy changes as a family, you have a lot of control over. It just takes starting somewhere. And we want you guys coming out of this tomorrow to implement something, to be able to take a step moving forward and get out of the place that if you don't like where you are, then change it. And if your family has gotten to this bad place, we just have to start somewhere. So 1% better every day is eventually going to get us where we need to be. It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, but you have to take a step forward. You have to start somewhere.
Yep.
So we have a ton of things that you guys can really get into to help lead you in those steps. We have upcoming workshops that are essential foundations for our patients. If you guys haven't been to that one,
September 5th.
make sure that you get to it. And if you haven't been to one in a while, make sure that you come and continue to, build your knowledge and more information. But that's where Zach really gets into the nutrition, the exercise, the detoxing, those other essentials that are so crucial for your care.
Well, and also, we've only been doing Essential Foundations for a few months now, so chances are you haven't been to one in a while, so come to one anyways.
That's a good one. We also have a community dinner that's coming up. This is one that it's at South Kitchen, is the restaurant that we do this community dinner at. It's a free dinner, and so for our patients, we love having you guys come out and just getting stronger in your mindset when it comes to health. And if you guys have friends or family that are struggling with their health and just struggling with where they're at in life, invite them out and help them to hear a different approach. We love our community dinners because there's so many people that didn't know there was another option, and every person can make their own choice if they want to make changes or not, but a lot of people just don't know that there's any other way that they can take care of it. So it's a free dinner on us, and we love doing them. If you haven't been out to one, or you really want to introduce these concepts to people, make sure you get signed up for that. We'll put in the comments, we'll put a link for all the upcoming workshops that we have. We have our immunity workshop coming up. That's going to be a great one. That's in September, the immunity workshop. So this is where we're going to talk about how to strengthen your immune system, how we don't have to, getting kids back into school. I have so many parents, they're like freaking out about kids getting sick. They're freaking out about coming into flu season. And so we're going to talk about how we keep our immune system strong.
It's going to be looking at general, where you can start some of the basics when it comes to increasing immunity. And then we're going to get into some higher level topics like autoimmune issues, cancer, some of the big things that are affected by a poorly functioning immune system. So we're going to go through protocols for various things, and it's going to be an awesome workshop that you guys need to be there. Because right now, statistically, we're talking about heart disease and cancer, and that affects 5 of 6 people in this country. So not only do we probably know multiple people that this is affecting, I'm probably speaking to the majority of somebody that is affected already, or if we don't make changes, is going to affect them.
Yeah, and if you have, friends that their kids are constantly sick, being put on antibiotics all the time, ear infections, there's more and more kids with digestive issues, food sensitivities, with just all of these different autoimmune issues going on, invite them out so they can start to feel empowered. And it's hard when you see your kids going through it. As a mother, you want to be able to do everything you can to help your child, and so invite any parents that out so they can get these tools and get more empowered with things. So we also do the Max T3 workouts in the office, that you got this guy to be able to help push you through a quick workout, and you'll see how really how much you can sweat in a short period of time, and then get on with your day, and you can really fit it into any lifestyle, any schedule, no matter how busy it is, you can fit that in. So anything else?
Nope.
If you guys have any specific questions about stuff that we covered, or questions about anything that we didn't, or related to heart disease and things like that, put those in the comments, and we're gonna this week do a couple just short 5-minute videos about a few specific topics that we have people that want us to get more in detail with. But we hope you guys have a great evening. And please pick something that you're going to be taking action with. And for patients, message us if you guys want to know next steps of where you should be getting into. For anyone who's listening to this, if you want more information about what we do and how we approach things in the office, just message us and we can reach out to you. You guys have a great night.
Love you guys.